The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk.
Back in the studio.
Yep, and I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday, and we're back in the studio. Boy,
we're excited.
Does it feel good? Now you can actually see our Spindle City Straight Talk shirts.
and our logos. Hey,
and our logos
we're
and stuff.
doing
yeah, we're
good. We're good. We're good to go. And I want to thank Keith Tebow and Steve Reese. Steve's running our board, and he takes the time out of his day to make sure our show is on the air all the time, and I greatly appreciate that. While we were shooting this from home, Steve was the one running the board, making sure everything was going fine. So credit where credit is due.
Absolutely. That's always a great job down here. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yes, it is.
So, and the only thing is our dogs don't get to get on camera.
That's it.
That's all. So the dogs don't get any camera time. So.
and hopefully your dog doesn't tear apart another comforter.
Doesn't need another comforter. That's right.
Well, I'm going to start right off the bat with the article in the Herald News today, and I'm going to point out some of the misinformation being spread by the Herald News.
Oh, what a surprise. Misinformation by the media.
So the Herald News came out with an article saying the Coogan administration addresses possible budget shortfalls. Ponte claims city facing financial woes. Let me tell you something. This is where Cliff is a day late and a dollar short. Everyone was telling him to have the press conference about this last week. Last week, they were told, address this, and he didn't do it. And now he's going to have a press conference tomorrow to address this. A day late and a dollar short. He should have came out at the get-go on this. I mean, if you remember when Jazel was in office, as soon as a negative story or something negative happened, Jazel was on top of it right away, jumping on it. So you have to look at that and see where it's going. So the State Department of Revenue, as we've spoken before, last week offered an opinion regarding the use of ARPA funding and calculations for municipalities trying to figure out their revenue loss. During a Mass Municipal Association remote meeting, Sean Cronin, DOR Senior Deputy Commissioner for Local Services, said that when a city or town calculates aid, any Chapter 70 money for school aid must be part of the calculation. And I guess this is what the city didn't do. They mustn't have included the Chapter 70 money in their calculations. But I'm going to go directly to where the misinformation comes out.
There's a ton of it in here. Too.
Oh, yeah. One of the things is that Coogan says we are not where he says we're at, and that's in regarding to Cliff Ponte's claims that the city's in financial difficulty and the deficit could be in the millions. But Coogan said, I think if he keeps out making statements like that, he should provide documentation that we are laying people off, there are no layoff notices, and that we are going for a debt exclusion. Have you seen any orders? Mr. Mayor, Mr. Ponte never said that you are laying off people. He never said you are going to the debt exclusion. He said that the three options may be available to overcome the shortfall in the budgets are layoffs, the debt exclusion. There was one other one. What was it? I can't remember what it was now.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. But again, this is where the mayor picks up on one word or one item and deflects all over the place.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be reinforced by media.
That's right.
Which is either inaccurate or biased. That's not what he said.
Right.
That's not what he said. You clarified. But as you said, he should have had a press conference before that to make it clear. And now he had an opportunity to rebut this one, so he gets two bites at the apple. So politically, he's still a newbie, and he's missing a lot of opportunities here.
Oh, there's no question about that. And we look at this and we say, because we've been beating this item up. I mean, we've really been beating it up for the past couple of shows.
Yeah.
But it just makes for a point that this is all deflection by the administration. And as I've said, and this is my personal opinion, as I've said, I believe that the Herald News is extremely biased towards the Coogan administration, as is WSAR, because they're not presenting this information. They never gave Cliff Ponte an opportunity to talk about this. They never gave the mayor opportunity to talk about it on the air. But now that it's in the Herald, it will be on the air. And again, Cliff won't be given the opportunity to talk about it because it's an election season, and equal time is only applied to the candidates when they're talking about the candidacy. When they're talking about what the mayor's doing for the city, that doesn't qualify.
And the last part of this article where they supposedly give you a timeline about what happened with the budget is totally inaccurate. The big giant headline in this article, City Council missed the deadline. The talks broke down. They did not break down. They were told by the mayor he was going to go back and work on the budget. He was going to bring something back. So he fundamentally lied to them. He had no intention of doing that, and they used the technicality. And now they're talking about how they should have known that. Well, the last opinion before Rumsey's opinion, who, by the way, went out for drinks with the mayor, well, we can prove that because we got a text message that says that inviting them out for drinks. So when he said he works for everybody, we can prove he doesn't work for everybody because we've got the text message that says, let's go out and have some drinks tonight. And so let's make it perfectly clear. The council was told the exact opposite by a previous corporation council.
Correct.
So, when a news media outlet adds to confusion, they are not doing their job. We can, we can pull a tape of the previous corporation council. We all know that. Everybody has admitted that they were told just the opposite about rejecting a budget in its totality. But see, this is what they like. They don't want you to remember what happened previously. They want you to believe their spin. And let me get down to something we've said ad nauseum. A corporation council's opinion is just that. It's an opinion. It is not law. It is not statute. It is not ordinance. It is an opinion on said statute, law, or ordinance, which are all the same with a different name because they're at a different level of government. But this article is absolutely skewed toward covering Coogan. So you know what? You know how we can cure this problem? Because this is the problem in politics. We have an election here. And it's going to be he said, she said, and there's going to be nothing clarity because nobody clarifies anything. I got a solution to this whole problem. Let's have a forensic audit of the city. We've been calling for that for 9 years.
A decade.
As long as we've been on the air, we've been calling for a full forensic audit. Let's see if the city really is broke. And when you say that, they all run for cover. Every mayor runs, Sam Sutter, oh, it's a criminal, oh, well, they're all afraid. Because I sat in a room over a decade ago and listened to the then city administrator admit that this city, if all its debt was called in, was over $500 million in the hole. And this is the problem. Cities are allowed to spend money they don't have pending a tax increase and a fee increase. So you really want to prove you're solid? Let's have a forensic audit. Let's find out, because you know something? It doesn't eliminate the fact that you're attempting to use one-time money for things that should not be appropriated for. This article is just inaccurate and skewed.
I agree. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think what's funny is Sean Kadim and Michelle Dion said very, very clearly that there was going to be a problem with this budget. They said that there is no money, you cannot use one-time money, and they kept beating that up. They kept saying, you're going to create a structural deficit. There are structural deficits in this budget. I remember Sean Kadim saying that over and over and over and over again. And again, the administration didn't want to hear it because they wanted the $280 million, and that was it. $280 million, that's what the city budget is. The high school is $263 million. So $280 million, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And when you're considering the fact that maybe it didn't need to be $280 million, maybe they could have cut off a few pennies here and there, you know, why aren't the taxpayers being taken into consideration? Why do we not have the time to say, let's look out for the taxpayer? And while we're talking about onto the taxpayer, I'm going to spread into another area. The water department.
Yeah, God.
Now, how many people remember the statement by Paul Ferland that he's using water department stabilization money to offset the rates, the water and sewer rates for the end users? I remember him saying that. Here's my problem. The stabilization money is extra money, and the only way they earn money is to tax and fee, and they give us fees. So if they're giving us excess fees because they're creating excess money, then that money should be returned to the taxpayer, should be returned to the end user, and not as though it's a big favor, because it's not a big favor. It's our money. Yeah. It's our money. And they claim that, well, if we don't have that money and there's a water pipe break, it won't get fixed. That's baloney. If there's a water pipe break, they're going to fix it. It's that simple.
Well, all they're doing is giving us our own money back.
Exactly.
Because they overcharged us in the first place.
Right.
And you should not have millions and millions of dollars in a fund. That's overtaxation. So the fees are structured so they can keep money and squirrel it away and do what they want with it. And, you know, this is wrong. But to get back to that, I just got to circle back, as Jen Psaki says. We're going to circle back. And to this article. You know what fascinates me, and I'm going to leave it at this because we've said this numerous times. It's amazing how politicians, no matter how many times they're told you can't use one-time money, still don't understand that concept.
Right.
Yet they have things like SAFER grants. And what does a SAFER grant do? It gives you money to hire firefighters. But that money, constantly, you are given less money until it disappears. And then you have that bill, and that firefighter is on the payroll. This is the reason you can't create an actual valid budget if you're using one-time money for a bill that's going to be in that budget in perpetuity. Salaries are in perpetuity. Jobs are in, unless you eliminate them. And, you know, this is the thing that they love to manipulate fact. You know, the thing is, you're like the little Dutch boy with their finger in a dike, plugging holes and saying, well, I'll let the next man worry about it. And that's exactly what's happening now. So we can get back to the water department. Which
well,
is
no, I mean, I just wanted to bring that up that,
yeah.
Again, we're seeing all this extra money. Now, while we're talking about extra money, ARPA money is extra money. It's one-time money given to the city to do some work with, preferably infrastructure work. But what does the mayor do? He hires 27 people back with ARPA money.
Yeah.
Now, that means it's going to be covered for not only this year, but next year. Who covers it in the third year? This is the same issue we have with, right. This is the same issue we have with the SAFER grants. It goes boom, 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 and then
Yeah.
we're hit with funding them. And then if you say we can't fund them, people start screaming, you're laying off public safety. Yeah. Nobody's going to lay off public safety. We try to find the money for it everywhere. But when you use one-time money, that's what happens. Oh, and that was the third item. To go into the stabilization fund, that's what Cliff Ponte said. To go into the stabilization fund, to use stabilization money to meet the shortfalls.
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
Well,
You do that, you're going to create a bigger deficit next year.
Well, you know, the thing that always gets me is that they don't even understand how these things work.
Right.
And they're in charge of the finances. The safer grants, they tell you that they're giving you that money for you to increase your manpower, and they're going to give you the time as it goes from 100% to 70, down through till it gets to zero, to create a method of continuous funding of these positions. It's not like, okay, you can use this money to double the size of your department and never worry about getting the money till later, and then everybody complains because they were going to lay people off. This is not the federal government's fault. This will not be anybody's fault but the administration. Any mayor who puts in 27 jobs that are only funded for 2 years without telling the public that those jobs will be eliminated in 2 years unless they find a source of funding it is misrepresenting what he's doing. All he's talking about is, look, I'm putting 27 more people on a payroll. And then again, the city isn't an employment agency. So therein lies the problem. They manipulate the entire narrative to fit a political campaign rather than worry about the good of the taxpayer.
Yeah, you know, and we said this numerous times. Now, one of the big things about this that he's also not talking about is at the end of the 2 years, those 27 employees that are laid off, because most likely they will be, we're still on the hook for them. Because the city has to pay for their unemployment. Yeah. 100% of their unemployment.
Yeah.
It's not like the city pays into the unemployment trust account.
Yeah. And how many years is he looking for, by the way?
He's looking for 2.
Oh, yeah. So in 2 years, he won't care.
Right.
Right?
Because he's not going to, it's somebody else's problem.
It'll be the next mayor that has to lay him off.
That's right. It's somebody else's problem.
Right? It's going to be somebody else's problem. Let's just kick that giant can right down the road.
And that's what we keep doing.
Money, and that's what we keep doing.
Yeah, we keep doing that. And that, you know, that's Fall River's big problem.
Yeah.
And it always has been. And, you know, I've got to say this, and we've always said it for a decade now, asking for a forensic audit.
Yeah.
We spoke with City Council President and mayoral candidate Cliff Ponte, and we said we would like a forensic audit. The citizens would like a forensic audit. And what does he put out there? He's going to do a performance audit.
Yeah, a targeted
performance audit.
Performance, not even on everybody,
yeah.
Just a targeted performance audit, which we all know are political audits, because we've had numerous audits in this city. They never turn up anything, because they're just very, very small, narrow audits, and they're just looking at the numbers that they provide. You need a forensic audit. I mean, back in '91, when we filed a grievance against the city and went to arbitration, we hired Ernst & Young to do a forensic audit of just the healthcare system, just that narrow piece, which is a big piece, but just that narrow piece. And I remember the auditor at the time, his name was Jim McGovern. He had just finished doing a multi-trillion-dollar audit of the state of Tennessee. And as you well know, most people do, Ernst & Young is one of the most reputable firms in the country. He walked into the city hall, and 2 hours after he's in there, I got a call. He said, "You got to come down here." I said, "What?" He said, "This thing's a disaster." And I went down. He said, "What?" He said, "You got a multi-million-dollar budget." I walked in and I wanted to look at their numbers, and they said, "Go over to that file cabinet and take all the slips out, put them on the floor, and sort them." And the arbitrator said at the end of that arbitration, the opening line, and I'm paraphrasing, won't be exact, but I can pull that off. I can pull that arbitrator's word. It said, "There was no doubt that the city of Fall River's books were in a total state of disarray." They found millions of dollars. He found just in that healthcare account that had been misappropriated. They admitted to crimes. They backdated checks from the previous year. They did things that they testified under oath that they were moving money, and our attorney asked them, "Well, what account did that come from, or where's it going?" They said, "We don't know. It's just got an account number." And the question was, and it is on the audit, and if you want to pay, I'll get it from the lawyer, because we had a court stenographer take every word verbatim. And the financial team at the time said, when he asked the question, so what you're telling me is if we were going to transfer that money into my personal account, you would? And the answer was, well, I guess so. This is why governments get away with this baloney, because there's no oversight. And they always, you know, they call in Joe DiNucci to do a performance audit. And these audits, they're using the city's numbers. You've got to get somebody in here who's going to want corroborative evidence about every single thing. They're going to look at every single account. That's what Ernst & Young did. They looked at every single healthcare account, and there were like 25 different accounts where they was sliding money all over the place. Listen, I've never seen a mayor yet with the courage to tell the people the truth and say, listen, I have no idea where we're going to be, but if I get elected, we're going to do a full, independent forensic audit. And that way, every citizen of Fall River will know exactly where we are, and I, as the mayor, will know exactly where we're going to start from to rebuild this community. You know, if you look at every council meeting, numbers are never the same. They don't have the numbers changed. I mean, it's a disaster. This city is, if this city's bills came due right now in their totality, we would be in receivership. That's the bottom line.
Well, that's the bottom line, huh?
Yeah, another one of the shows we do, but that's all right. But I got my Spindle City show.
Yeah. I will say that in fairness to Joe Good, she did put, and I'm going to quote her this from her article, reiterating his social media claims, Ponte said city layoffs and increases in taxes and fees are 3 remedies, as well as taking money from the city's reserve account. So that's what Ponte said. Joe Good said that's what he said, but the mayor said different. So again, you have to look at the spin. This is campaign spin. This is a political campaign season, and this is campaign spin.
Yeah. Well, if you look at this article, there's about, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, about 12 paragraphs.
You got a whole bunch on the back.
Oh, yeah. All right. There's about 20 paragraphs, and he's got one little thing about at the end of the article, after you've done all the impact.
Right.
And then you say, well, Cliffy, it's not a clarification. She did not point out when Paul Coogan, which she was attributing Paul Coogan's statement, she didn't put the 2 statements within the framework and say, well, this is what Mayor Coogan is saying, and this is what Council President is saying. And then you can say, okay, now you can say, well, obviously there's a dispute here, because the last thing they want anybody to do is get an accurate representation.
Correct.
They want to continue the political narratives.
Right. And again, I in some ways I can't wait till tomorrow's press conference, and in other ways I just don't even want to bother because it's a day late and a dollar short. But again, if you want to watch his press conference, he is having it tomorrow at Government Center on the North Main Street side of the building. It'll be interesting to see what he has to say about this and addressing this narrative, because the people want to know.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't had a valid narrative about this issue since he's known about it, and he allegedly knew about this last Wednesday, a week ago today.
Yeah.
So he's had 7 days already to address this, and he's going to address it on day 8, the day after the mayor addresses it.
Yeah, you know, just look at the headlines, though. Look at this big giant block print at the top. You can't read it, but you see how
Right.
You know, emboldened for emphasis. Coogan administration addresses possible shortfall. Ponte claims, not only Ponte, say claims city facing financial woes. How about the fact that Sean Kadim, who was a former city administrator, said it, Michelle Dion said it, and other city councilors said that we were facing financial woes. And we always face financial woes. But again, this is what happens when you have a campaign, and it's actually enhanced. We see what's happening on a national level with what's happening. Look at Facebook now. They're having a horror show over at Facebook.
Right.
So, mainstream media, it seems that reporting, especially in mainstream media, they've lost their fundamental integrity. They've become political arms of different parties.
And, the testimony that was given to Congress yesterday by the former Facebook employee said very clearly that Facebook was putting profits before safety, and that they were not enacting safety measures to increase their profit margin, because if it was a grabber headline, a big headline to grab people right away, false or positive, they liked it because it increased clicks, and clicks equal money.
Yeah, well.
And I mean, that's what we're looking at now. And now we've got our Attorney General. I received a press release yesterday.
Oh, I was just going to go to that one.
She turned around and she announced that she's siding with the federal government on looking into the social media and its use with youth.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about the Merrick Garland's weaponizing the federal government against freedom of speech.
Yes.
They're rather than worry about all the murders and things that are going on in our cities, and Chicago's a prime example, they just supposedly, now there's a difference because now she's that one who covered for Smollett and dismissed something. There were some gang shootings and there was somebody dead, people wounded. And she let out that she just dismissed everything, and she said it was a mutually agreed upon, and they don't quote me exactly, but it was a mutual agreement between two gangs to have a war in the middle of the Chicago streets. So it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
because
matter,
it doesn't matter that gang people are killing other gang people. It's the fact that they murdered somebody and discharged firearms is irrelevant. But now she's saying, no, that's not true. We didn't have enough evidence, but the thing's on video. They got the damn thing on video.
Right.
So this is the problem. Every single arm of the government is being politicized for partisan politics, and that's not the way the government is supposed to work. I'm sorry. You can't do things like this. You cannot make everything, weaponize everything. This is how you get socialism, because you take away everybody's rights and they want to federalize everything. And this is insane. And they have people there complaining about, what they're teaching their children. And now the federal government's telling you do not have the right to have any input into your children's education.
There you go. This is how we do it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, we're running out of time here, and I want to get into one issue, which we can't discuss too much, but allegedly, the mayor and Ken Fiola are working with Stephanie and Joe Merck, M-E-R-K-T, to bring in a marijuana cultivation shop or store or whatever you want to call it into the city. Now, allegedly, there were questions about why they took so long on acting, why the mayor took so long on acting on this issue. Well, we don't know, but they did threaten to go to the media, and when they did, all of a sudden, the mayor and Ken Fiola are acting. In researching some of this, I found that Stephanie and Joe did give the mayor $125 as a campaign contribution. That could have been to their cocktail party or anything. I'm not saying that it is a bribe or a pay-to-play thing. I'm not saying any of that. But people are saying that could be conceived that way. So we want to know, and we're going to be following that a little more and see what happens. We've got statements out to Stephanie and Joe Merck, and they haven't replied to them at all. So we'll have to see how that works.
Isn't there a pharmaceutical company, Merck?
Yeah, I think so.
I wonder if they have any affiliation.
I want to thank you all for watching. Welcome back to the studio. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great day.
Stay informed.